Hi everyone, welcome back to another session of Let's Review Code. I was originally going to record the live codes version of this too, but there was an error in recording and, well, you can only live code once because after that it's no longer live. So here we have an easy problem just to get back into flow of things. I haven't done algorithms in a while, so I wanted to do something that's relatively easy as a warm-up, then start off with a medium. So from the easy one, we shall go with merge sorted array. Given two sorted array integer arrays, nums1 and nums2, merge nums2 into nums1 as one sorted array. So what does that mean? That means that we are going to modify nums1 as opposed to the standard given two arrays, merge them together and return a new array. So let's read the notes. The note says the number of elements initialized in nums1 and nums2 are m and n respectively. So my first thought with that was, well, why do we need to know length if we can just do array.length? And then you may assume that nums1 has enough space, size that is equal to m plus n to all the additional elements from nums2. So that second point plus the example, where here you can see that nums1 equals 1, 2, 3 with 3 zeros and only 3 items are active. That is the reason why we can't use nums1.length and nums2.length to find out how many items in the array, because in the first array, the size of the array is bigger than the number of elements that we're supposed to look at. So in the case of nums1 here, for example, we have an array of length 6, but we only want to care about the first 3 elements. So there are multiple ways of doing this. The first approach I thought of was similar to sorting in place. We just shift things along. So the approach is to shift down as we go. So for example, here in nums1 we have 1, 2, 3, and then nums2 we have 2, 5, 6. So we start going 1 compared to 2, we take the 1, 2 to 2, we can either keep the 2 or push it in. And then it'll be 3 to 2, so we want to push the 2 into the first array and shove everything else down. So 3 moves down 1, and then 5 and 3, it's 3, so the 5 goes into the next section, and then 5 and 6 goes into the next section as well. So it feels very inefficient because essentially you are shifting down the rest of the array in nums1 every time you find something in nums2 that is smaller than the current element. So you would have to shift everything up to n times, and you're shifting up to m minus whatever spot you're at elements. There's an optimization that could be done in that, for example, once you get to the end of the max, the end of the first array, so once you get to 3 or whatever the highest number is, then you know that after that, you just add the second one to the end. You don't have to do any more shifting. So that cuts it down somewhat, but it still leaves it to be fairly, there's a big possibility that it could get very complex depending on the input. So let's look at what's kind of time complexity we're looking at. We're looking at O of n by m complexity because, for example, if you have to shift n elements, so you're shifting, say, at the second spot, so you're shifting the rest of the nums1 array n times, and each time you're shifting up to m elements. So, but best case is just O of m. Reasoning for that is you don't really have to do any shifting. You just kind of append to it. Actually, the best case would be if nums2 is completely empty. In that case, you just have to go through nums1. You can even have a boundary condition of it'll stop once you hit, once the second array is empty. Or if the second array only has one item and it's at the end, then you just have to go through the array of m. However, the space complexity, since we're kind of doing it in place, it's O of 1 constant time. There are a couple of variables to take care of, but nothing that's really going to scale the size of the input. That's probably the, I guess, space efficient approach. Then the second approach we have is we can make a new array and copy back into nums1 and done. So this is similar to the approach of if we're given two sorted arrays and we want to return a new array. This is actually taking that exact same approach, but just at the end we copy it back into nums1. So in this case, time complexity is m plus n, because you have to do a scan of the nums1 and nums2 array. And the space complexity is also m plus n, because your combined array that you're going to store as a new array is going to be the size of both nums1 and nums2. Although it won't be the same size as, I guess, and keeping in mind that, I guess, m here refers to the number of elements that we want to look at in nums1, not the actual array length of nums1. Because if that was the case, then it'd be O of m complexity for both space and time. So let's kind of go over like how that's going to work. So as I said, it's just as similar as if you're given two arrays and returning a new array. So here we want to create a new array. We want to keep our index variables of where are we in nums1 and nums2. We could get rid of, I guess, elements from nums1 and nums2 as we go along to keep track, but then that's bad for two reasons. One is we're modifying the original array. Two, that's computationally more expensive because you're taking an element of an array and the array might have to resize itself, for example, depending on the language and on the runtime. So we have our index variables here to keep track of where are we in nums1 and nums2. Then we just go through a loop. This took a bit of thinking because when do we stop? We could loop through, I guess, m elements, and then within that we could kind of have something that moves along the second array, having a second loop. But that makes the time complexity a little bit harder to calculate because you have a loop within a loop, even though that second loop runs a limited number of times. For example, if you have all your elements in the first array being bigger than the second array, then you kind of run through all of your first loop. The second loop doesn't really go in a loop more than once per iteration at the end. So what that means is their second array would only second loop would only run once out of the total number of times that the first array runs. But that makes the things a little bit more complicated. So here we're just going to loop through m to n because we know that's the size of our resulting array. And then we set the current one, which is the current value of the first array, to be either to look at if it's less than m, and if so, then we set it to that element in the first array, otherwise set to undefined. The reason we set it to undefined is what happens when we go past the index for the second array. In that case, it's either null or undefined. I believe it's undefined, so I just want to make it the same, I guess, variable type. So that way we can compare, we went past the first array and we went past the second array. How do we tell that? It's undefined. And then the current value from 2 is just whatever is the second array at the marker index variable. So as mentioned earlier, once it gets passed, it just goes to undefined. And then here, if we reach the end of the first array, but the second array still has something, then we just take from the second array. And then we use continue here to kind of end this loop so we don't have to worry about this second if step. We could kind of skip the continues if we had, for example, just instead of if here, we just had else if. So that way it'll chain and this whole block structure only run once. If we didn't have to continue and we left it as is, it could run twice because it could run this block of code, and then if anything, the second block is true, it'll run this as well. This, because it's else, it'll always be true. So in that case, it'll run twice, which is not what we want. So here we have, as we said, if it's end of nums1 with not nums2, then we add to it. And then otherwise, if we're end of nums2, then we take from the first array. So the reason why we don't have to check that current 1 is not equal to undefined is because here we have that already. Because if it is undefined and we have something from the second condition, let me rephrase that. So what happens if we're at the end of nums1 is at the end? This will be true, and what happens if nums1 is at the end but nums2 is not at the end? So then this will be true as well. So we'll run what's in here, continue, but won't worry about this block. Now what happens if nums1 is not at the end, but nums2 is at the end? In that case, if nums1 is not at the end, so this is false already, so this won't run. So we cross this out. And then here we have from nums2, it is not at the end, so this doesn't run. But if nums1 and nums2 are neither of them are at the end, so this is false and this is false, then we move on to here where we can check to see which is bigger. So that's just like the condition of one or the other is at the end. The case where both are at the end should be taken care of because n plus m elements would have to be, I guess, passed through from the result from the array, first array and second array. And in that case, we already hit this n plus m condition here, and we're at the end of our for loop. So what happens if we haven't run to the end of either array? In that case, we just compare to see which one's bigger. If the first one is smaller than the second one, then we take the first one in and we move the index along. Otherwise, we take the second from the second array and we move the index along. So, and then let's talk about, I guess, where mistakes are easy to be made. Originally, I had actually, instead of this equals to undefined, I just put if not cur1. So that's a truthy statement. And it worked for the example that we're given here, but it didn't work, for example, when some of the numbers were 0. Because 0 is, if, for example, if exclamation mark cur1, that would return true if cur1 is undefined, if it's null, or if it's false, or if it's 0. So we want to make sure that it's only if it's undefined, that 0 won't trigger it. So that's why we changed this from if not cur1 to if cur1 is explicitly undefined. And then the same thing for the rest of the block as well. And then here at the end, so right now result has a resulting array that's merged of the two arrays nums1 and nums2. Then we just copy it back into nums1, overriding nums1 as the instruction state we shared. And then we just return nums1. It doesn't say whether we have to return or not because we're sorting in place. We're modifying in place that they already know what nums1 is. But just in case, if they don't say what to return it anyways, or whatever you think is the most logical thing to return would be. So what's the time complexity? Let's take a quick look. Here we have a loop of n plus m. So that's pretty much n plus n. And then we add on O of n plus m again. But because it's big O notation, big O of 2 times m plus n, 2 times m plus n is the same as O of n plus n. So it is more complex to have that second, I guess, operation here than if we didn't have it. But in terms of big O notation, it doesn't matter. Space complexity, it's O of n plus n because this resulting array here is going to have both arrays combined, nums1 and nums2. And that's m elements and n elements. And yeah, so that is our solution. So we had, I guess I don't really, I guess, fully trust these, I guess, runtime because it's pretty random. The first solution was when we had a bunch of console logs to debug, took out the console logs, but it's also a lot due to luck as well. Here it says we're faster than, 87% of the solutions, but it's pretty random. If I click submit again, it can give me something that's even better or something that's worse. So don't worry too much about that. Just think more about the time complexity and does that make sense? Does it feel efficient? And if not, then where can we optimize? So that's it for this question. It's an easy question, but it's a little bit, I guess, lengthy because there's a lot of different case scenarios. Hope you liked it. Give it a subscribe and a like. And again, also, as always, if you have any questions, put it in the comments. If you have something you want me to focus on or make my next video about, put that in the comments. I love hearing from you. Good luck on programming, and I'll see you next time.